Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emily, and we are going to talk about the Decatur House this evening. Let's pretend we are all the way over in Washington, D.C. right now, where the Decatur House stands and where it has stood for the last 200 years, right down the block from the White House. It has a very rich history, and today it's a museum. They educate people there about the African American history, and the people, the tourists, the visitors who go there have no idea what really happened to the first man who owned this home. His name was Stephen Decatur, and he was a Navy hero who lived here with his wife a very long time ago. So when people come to visit this museum, they often find that they are experiencing these severe stomach pains. Sometimes it gets really extreme and they describe it like a sharp, twisting, cramping sensation, and they have to reach out and grab nearby furniture to keep from collapsing to the floor. So the employees there are really confused about why people are running away from their groups to go vomit in the bathroom. And the doctors are never able to provide an adequate explanation on like what is going on. Food poisoning, virus, it's none of those things. So a lot of people believe that the late Stephen Decatur has everything to do with it. He was actually shot through the abdomen with a pistol, and that is how he died. People say that his ghost resides here still, and that the agony he suffered was so excruciating that of course he could not really leave ever. He died right here on the main floor, and he was killed by a man named James Barron. So James Barron was not a criminal, but he had his reasons for wanting Decatur dead. 13 years before he killed Decatur with a pistol, Barron was a Commodore. He was in the Navy just like Decatur was, and he commanded his own ship, the United States Chesapeake. Now, the Chesapeake was attacked by the British, Her Majesty's ship Leopard, and Barron almost put up no resistance. He surrendered almost immediately. So the British boarded their ship and took 4 of his sailors, and they put these sailors on trial because the British were looking for deserters at the time. So 3 of the sailors were sentenced to 500 lashes each, and the last one, he was sentenced to death. He died at the end of a noose. So of course the United States was humiliated, and they stripped Barron of his title for 5 years for cowardice and for poor leadership. So when James Barron discovered who was the most outspoken instigator to have him court-martialed and convicted, and I'll give you a hint, it was Stephen Decatur. He was furious. He was so angry, and it planted this seed of bitterness inside of him, and he was nursing that for 13 years, that grudge, until finally it became too much for him. He tracked Decatur down and he challenged him to a duel in 1820. So, the day of the shootout, both men aimed true. They fired at each other at the same time, and both immediately dropped because they were both shot. So Barron's wound wasn't fatal, but his bullet was. And now Stephen Decatur, the Commodore, the naval hero, was gut shot, and they rushed him home to his house, right here in the Decatur house, and they tried desperately to save him. 3 times they tried to sew the wound shut, but his blood soaked through every set of bed sheets in the house, and he was begging to be let go. The pain tortured Decatur for 2 days. He wanted to leave. He didn't want to suffer that pain anymore. He prayed for unconsciousness, and when death finally took him, his wife carried on into hysterics. She was crying and raging until they finally sedated her, and she never recovered from her husband's loss. So they say that his ghost has been here ever since, and that he was often seen gazing out through that upstairs window out into the street as if waiting for Baron to arrive. And the apparition was seen so often that eventually the window was just boarded up. And if you watch very carefully, you can still catch a glimpse of him early in the morning, leaving his house through the back door with pistols in hand. So perhaps he is fated to relive that duel over and over again, and perhaps each time he hopes that it will turn out differently and his honor will be restored and he'll be allowed to leave. But one can hope, at least in death, that the excruciating pain he felt has dissipated.